Thanks for visiting Hobby Shop 1982 on page 121. Today's video is going to be on Gw1 Legion of Gold for Gamma World, the very first module offered from Gamma World, published in 1981. Maybe you've been passing on this one for a little bit as you've walked into the hobby shop in 1982, and finally you decided, you know what, it looks lonely, it needs a home. You plunk down your, I believe it was $6, and bring it on home and read it. We got a ton of life out of this particular module. I'll go into that into the video. This was, for obvious reasons, an early favorite because it was the earliest module. Interestingly, it says for beginning and intermediate level players. There are no levels in Gamma World at this point, so it means intermediate skill, not level. So today on Hobby Shop 1982, on page 121, Gamma World, Legion of Gold. Gamma World module Gw1 Legion of Gold by Gary Gygax with Luke Gygax and Paul Reich III for beginning to intermediate level players, which is kind of funny because at the time Gamma World didn't really have levels. This was published in 81, and as I said, I'm pretty sure I got this module the same time I bought my box set for Gamma World. I would often do that if I jump into a game. I would go ahead and pick up a supplement or two right away, just so I could have plenty to read. So again, there are spoilers, so if you don't want to see what's in this module in a lot of detail, go ahead and tune out now. Otherwise, here we go. So we get a lot of what is now called a sandbox in this one. We get the city of Horn, most likely the city of Elkhorn, from Wisconsin, the area Gygax was in. I think there's a Gen city in here, which is probably Lake Geneva. And we get a lot of different maps. We get an area map. Gen City is right there. Devon, it's got to be Delavan, Lake Delavan. Or Delavan, Wisconsin. I don't know enough about the area. Deerwood is probably Deerfield of some nature. Gygax liked to do that. If he had different places, he liked to go ahead and make them in his area, which, since he's originally from Chicago and then was in southern Wisconsin, is also my area. So I never minded it. It always kind of gave me familiarity with the stuff that he was doing. So basically, here's the area map. And this is what's now called a sandbox. Basically, it gives you the country surrounding the area, plus a bunch of mini adventures before we get into the main adventure. The mystery of this particular module is the Legion of Gold. Gold armored warriors spreading around the area, attacking villages, and then taking adults, and the adults are never seen again. And then rinse, repeat on the process. But each time the Legions got a little bit more, a few more members. What could be happening to the adults? So we go into this a little bit. It starts in a tavern, which, of course, TSR banned by the mid-80s. If you started an adventure in a tavern, they wouldn't even work with it, but here we are. So yes, it starts in a tavern. Interestingly, the way this module reads, it reads very similar to Module S3, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. I have a feeling this module was originally written as a sequel to that and then repurposed. I think the idea Gygax had was that maybe part of Greyhawk would have some tech contamination from the crashed starship, and this area would kind of grow and have tech, because this reads just like it. Now, there's an argument to be made that they were written about the same time by the same person, but Gygax's other works from around the same time that were written for D&D don't read the same as this module. So just my suspicion. I always thought that. When I read Module S3 and then I read this, I went, wow, this one's almost a sequel to S3. And as I said, back in the day, there was so little information on Gamma World and so little illustration for the weapons and things and the equipment that I actually carried my S3 around with me, which had a lot of good illustrations in it. And I would carry that around when I played Gamma World. It rode around in the box. So basically, we got a good look at the Fortress of Horn, and we're working for the Baron of Horn. And Gemus, he's the warder of the barony. And he's a conqueror, a manipulator, a politician. And what it is the king needs you to do X. So pretty standard. Again, feels like D&D, but you get to go to the palace and you're sent on your mission. Your mission is find out what's going on. What is this Legion of Gold that's attacking it? Interestingly, about this module is the area of Horn and all the other cities nearby. This is a lot more settled and a lot more feudal, medieval Europe flavor to it than other Gamma World offerings, which again makes me think this might have been written as a D&D module originally. This is pretty settled for Gamma World. Usually Gamma World, when you leave your immediate area of huts, you're out in the wilderness. There's immediate wilderness. This isn't. There's actual trade going on. And I know that there are modules that have trade between communities and such. But you get the flavor from this one that there's actually quite a thriving little metropolis going here. And the various outlying cities are what's being attacked. So you start out with being able to talk to the Baron. He sends you on your way. And then you get to go to his, take a look at his vehicle shed. We get a look at that. The players don't go in here, although they do get loaned one of the vehicles. This is quite a little fleet this guy's got. And they're all in 90% chance that they're in running order. And he has fuel for it as well. Pretty cool. Interestingly, this module is set in 24, I forget the exact year, but the 25th century. Yet throughout this, we find cans of gasoline left by the ancients that are still fine. The can hasn't rusted through. The gasoline's not contaminated in any way. You just take it as some of your treasure. So it's pretty cool. So we get a good look at the city of Horn, the Fortress of Horn. We used Horn as a base for a long time in early Gamma World, simply because it was so easy to take it out of this module. And familiar-looking individual there, Mr. Gygax himself. I have a feeling that's E.T. I'm not sure who that gentleman's supposed to be. So we go to a couple of mini-adventures first, and then once we're through the mini-adventures, we go ahead and we fight the Legion. I ran some of these mini-adventures. This one is the Parn. You go to a farm, and the farm has been abandoned. You find out that there's a bunch of Buggums living in the area. Buggums are new to this module. We got a lot of new monsters in this module, and a few new pieces of equipment, which is, again, what made these supplements so important. This part of the adventure feels very much like the old 1950s giant ant monster movie, Them. And I have a feeling that there was a little influence of the movie Them in here. So we go through, and there's several pages on this, and it's a nice little lair. It's literal dungeon crawl if you want. It's just bug holes. But there's some good ways to lose your character in here. We end up with a telepathic leader bug that can mind blast you, and he's also got a demo charge with a pressure sensitive pack and things like that waiting for you. So that was pretty cool too. And then once you're done with the Buggums, your next part as you're exploring is you're going to come across a bunch of shelters. And these shelters were built in a period of Cold War between the years 2150 and 2193. The idea was that you would put these shelters everywhere, and they would be smaller shelters where individual groups, maybe 4 or 5 people, could literally shelter and survive the coming apocalypse and then crawl forth. So the idea, rather than make one big shelter, is they made all these Duralloy smaller shelters. Duralloy, by the way, is the uber metal of Gamma World. If you're familiar with Wolverine and Adamantium, or Marvel movies, and to a lesser extent Vibranium, that's kind of what Duralloy is. It's not an exact analog to Vibranium because it has no vibration absorbing qualities like Vibranium does. But it's a super metal, super tough. Once you're able to get like a Duralloy sword, it's a really durable weapon that'll hold its edge forever, that sort of thing. And there are Duralloy swords throughout this module. So now we find these shelters that were built a couple of 100 years ago and are in various degrees of repair or misrepair. And this is kind of neat because there's a bunch of different little dungeon crawls, basically. Here's a map of each shelter. You only get one map, but there's 10 shelters. So we spent 2 sessions doing nothing but clearing the shelters. Eventually, the party camped for a long, long time in one of the shelters. They took one of the places pretty much intact and were able to use it for their base. So we get to go through all the shelters, and we get to meet different creatures that are lairing in there, and there's some different monsters from Gamma World in there. And here we've got a family of Purse-trained humans that stopped here to recuperate on their way to Horn. It turns out that their daughter is actually a mutated human, but nobody knew it. So that's pretty neat. And then the third mini adventure is we're going to the Sub Aqua Laboratory. This is a laboratory just inside the lake of Mitch Gloom, Michigan. Mitch Gloom. So Lake Michigan, Mitchy Gloom, it's called. And inside is an old ancient's base that sticks out under the lake. This is actually a neat little dungeon crawl. There are nice little robot encounters in here. There's a good one right there. And there's a real good way to end your character by drowning in here. So you want to be careful when you're in here, even if you're just walking around with bows and arrows, and by this time you might have captured a Dura alloy sword or two. You still have to be careful in here. The other thing this module has is a lot of pistols, slug-throwing pistols, as opposed to beams and things like that. There are a few beam weapons in here, but most of what you can capture are slug throwers. So it goes through the place, and the aquarium and the robots are maintaining this place through all this time because they're waiting for the humans to come back and continue the research. We have a ruptured dome there. We get into the station defense and excursion docks, and you find a neat little submarine here. So that's kind of neat. I like that. I like that literally half the module is the city and then the sub-adventures, because, again, you can really grow this into a big adventuring area. And we did. We adventured here probably for the first 3 or 4 years. We played Gw1. It was clustered around Horn and around Lake Michigan. Now we get to the Legion of Gold. What is going on with the Legion of Gold? You've found some clues in here, and you've taken them back to the Baron. The Baron's very pleased. So the Baron talks to you again and says, well, you know what? You guys have done well. You can go to my arsenal, and you can choose 2 items each. And here's the list you can choose from. A laser pistol, a Mark V blaster, a vibro dagger, 3 stun whips, a laser rifle, a Mark VII rifle, 3 chemical explosive grenades, 3 fragmentation grenades, 1 energy grenade, 1 small damage pack, 4 suits of plastic armor, 3 communication centers, 2 medikits, and 3 replacement chemical energy cells, suitable for all laser or blaster weapons. So this is pretty good too, because all of a sudden there's your reward. You've gotten some drips and drabs from the various encounters, and now the Baron says, here is your reward for what you've done for me to this point. It's pretty neat. I like that you could just grab a Mark VII rifle right here. You have to be careful with your shots because you don't have a lot of chem cells or energy cells, but still. And the other thing this has, the Village of Horn, or the Barony of Horn and everything, this has a very Village of Hamlet feel to it too, which is a very good thing. Village of Hamlet is a great module, and this thing having that flavor is kind of neat. So now we go to leaving Horn, and now we get a bunch of random encounters, and some of these are new, some of these are old. Batters are a great Gw1 monster, and then we get a great lake encounters. On the shores of the lake, we get all these different creatures, androids, arcs, just all kinds of good stuff. And then Followers of the Voice, which is a group that's following a computer called Reaper. And we're going to get to that in a moment. So here we continue on through the adventure, and we get up to the place where the Legion of Gold headquarters is. And we're going to go into the Legion of Gold headquarters. This could easily, even for Gw1, be a slaughterhouse for the players. You have to be careful. If you sneak in here and sneak around and take out an android here and there, you're fine. If you do something stupid, like, I don't know, just blaze in and attack the place, you're going to find yourselves in a world of hurt fast, because there's a lot of androids in here, and they have a lot of hit points, pretty good weaponry, and they're not easy to put down. But we got a nice look at the Legion of Gold headquarters. We get a look in right here. Legion of Gold headquarters is our little inlay right there. I like that they always did these in blue, by the way. I don't know why, but I always like that they did them in blue. So then we get to finding out what's going on here. What the heck is the Legion? Well, the Legionnaires, the Legion robots, are led by Centurion robots. And what we come to find out, spoilers again, is that this is a rogue cybernetic installation that's gone mad. It's changed its name to Reaper, and it has decided that it basically has to use its legions to go ahead and conquer the area to protect itself against anything that might come and harm it. You go through the Legion, you fight it. The Legionnaires Legion robots are controlled by the Centurions. The Centurions are robots that broadcast power to the Legion. The Legion are humans who've basically been lobotomized, had a little control chip put into their head, and now are just robotic servants who are clad in armor. They are robotic in the sense that they act like robots, not that they're physically robots. So you're finding out what happened to all the adults in all the towns that have been captured. They've been turned into Legionnaires. And there's a couple of functioning laboratories where they do that. You do find some Legionnaires, or some humans who've been captured but have not been turned into Legionnaires yet. So you're able to free them. And then you get to the cybernetic tank, and you have the means to destroy the cybernetic tank, but the tank itself has an auxiliary power plant, and with a small fusion reactor, and that's what the mushroom cloud is right there, is that it can destroy everything in the nearby area. So it's the classic quick run as this thing counts down to the explosion. It's pretty neat, and it ends it very finally. The Legion is done, because the Legion robots themselves can only work with the Centurions, and the Centurions take their orders from the cybernetic installation. So if the cybernetic installation is down, the Centurions are down. If the Centurions are down, the Legionnaires are down. By the way, there is no way to cure the Legion people, the humans who've been turned into members of the Legion. There's no way to save them. They just end up being robotic to the point that they can't feed or dress themselves or anything. So they're just, oops. So this was 81, and Gygax did play hardball sometimes. So we get some more encounters right in the area, as maybe you're going back to the barony. And then we got a bunch of new creatures in here. The Bagoon Bogums that we mentioned before, Death Moss, which is really nasty. Catkins, which are kitty cat people. Letharps, Screamers, and Weirbule. These are nice. I wish there were illustrations. I remember that being a problem in 1981 as well, because, again, no internet, no real source to find pictures that are this and that. The only thing I could really do, I played with some comic book fans, and even some people who read comics casually, is sometimes I would bring comics with me and just show pictures out of the comic book and say, here you go, this is what this looks like, this is what this looks like. There weren't even very many movies at the time that you could draw a lot of things out of, except, of course, for the 50s sci-fi horror films. The Amazing Colossal Man, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, Them. By the way, all of those absolutely influenced Gamma World. So then we get to the Legion of Gold itself, and oddly enough, when you're reading the adventure, you don't really understand what the Centurion robots are. You have to go to this appendix to find out what the Centurions are, what Reaper is, and then what a Legionnaire is. So that was kind of interesting. It was just an older way to put the module together, I guess. Fortunately, I always paged through the modules first, and I very often would read, the new monsters in the back and the appendices, simply because I knew they stashed a lot of the information that would be important to the story back here. And then we get descriptions of new weapons, which are rifled musket, mini grenade launchers, automatic pistols, rifles, shotguns, and ammunition. None of this is really called out very well in the original rules. This fleshes out a little bit. There's some of this in here in the original rules, but this fleshes it out nicely. Again, not a lot of support material for Gamma World when this came out. A few Dragon articles at the time. And this module and the core one. And there's one other module that comes out for first I'll take a look at in another video. So then we get the weapon class of the firearms, which is really important because the weapon class is what dictates how it hits on the D20, remember. Your character's level didn't matter at all to this when you're using a weapon. If you were attacking something hand-to-hand, then your dice mattered. So it's funny that this is listed as a low-level module because there are no levels at this point in Gamma World. So we get to take a look at the villages of the Barony of Horn. And as I said, this is pretty well settled area for Gamma World. And later things of Gamma World would not have areas this settled. And then we get down to some treasure tables. These were nice because, again, we didn't have a lot yet. So you would be able to go ahead and throw, and if I threw a 91, I'd get a screwdriver. Good condition, it's a Phillips head. Okay, great. Of course, I need a flathead. That's how it always works. And just some nice little treasure tables. And then we're back to the maps, and then we're out of the adventure. So this is available on Drive-Thru RPG as a PDF. It's about $5. Most of the old Gamma World stuff is available as a PDF. I absolutely recommend it. I harvest a lot of this stuff, or harvested, and still do to this point, for other games, including Champions, Traveler, Star Frontiers. A lot of Gamma World stuff translates nicely to Star Frontiers, and all of it's just good. It's inspirational reading, if nothing else. So I do recommend picking up the PDFs if you can. But that's a look at Legion of Gold, GW1, a module for beginning and intermediate level players for Gamma World. So I hope you like and saw. If you did, please like and subscribe. Leave me some comments. Any polite criticisms, always interested. I'm going to go through the second and last module they released for Gamma World First Edition. And then I'm going to take a look at Gamma World Second Edition, because that brought a lot of improvements to the game and ended up being the edition we played for a long, long time. But that's it for today on page 121. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.